I want to introduce you to our tutor, Tamer Khraisha. Is that right? He's a senior software engineer at Flash Payments, and he will hold a harnessing financial data APIs, step-to-step guide to financial data collection and integration tutorial. Enjoy.
Great, thank you for the introduction. First of all, I hope everyone hears me well. If not, please write in the chat or just unmute yourself and tell me. So yeah, thank you all. I can see your names here on the right, the attendees. Thank you all for selecting this session. Oh good, yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you for dedicating your time to attending my tutorial. So I will share my screen in a second, and I will be explaining to you the tutorial, give an overview, and then we will work through it. Now, just one thing. I do hope that all of you have received an email with a list of prerequisites before this conference. So I was told that the email was sent over to the attendees. In this email, there are instructions for you to get some API keys, free API keys, and install Docker desktop on your computer. Now, in case some of you joined like later or didn't receive the email, it's fine for you if you just watch it, or we can try, like I can give you instructions how to get these API keys, but maybe it will take you more time to install Docker on your machine. So feel free to interrupt me if you did not get the email. Tell me, I would like to actually execute the code, so I would need to get the API keys. So let me share, so you will understand better what I'm talking about. If I share entire screen, okay. Okay, just a second, because I just installed Zoom, so it's asking me to give it permission to share the screen. No, may not be able to. Later, let's see if I can share now. Yeah, great. Not now, 24, whatever. So can you guys see what I'm sharing now? Let me check if someone wrote in the chat. I think to receive the email. Okay, good. So I see you can confirm, guys, that you see the screen that I'm sharing. Some did not get the email. So let me share with you this GitHub page where, let me just, so the first thing you need to do, I will give you instructions in a sec to get the API keys. So let me share this. Where is the chat? So this is the GitHub page. I just posted it in the chat. It's fine if we spend like 10-15 minutes. It's normal for tutorials to for you to set up the environment. So please go to this GitHub page and clone it. So click here and copy this URL and open a terminal like this. Actually, you can copy this. So go to the link that I shared and go down
sorry,
here.
Tamer.
Yes. Yes.
Roberta said I can see the link. So you should send not to host and panelists, but to everyone.
Please send it to everyone. So
Not just to host and panelists.
oh, sorry, like I'm. Oh, everyone. Yes, here. Sorry, I didn't see this. Let me share again. Where is it? Here. Yes. I guess now it was shared with everyone. So it's a GitHub page. This is the GitHub page for my book, actually. So I recently published a book with O'Reilly. It's called Financial Data Engineering. And if you would like to read this book, I have here a link which gives you 30 days free access to the O'Reilly platform. You can click here, you can sign up. There is no need for credit card or anything, just your email. You can sign up and read it. It's like the topic is similar to what I'm going to present today. It's just like a broader in scope, the book. So what I was saying before, let's do this, the first step. So go to this page here to the bottom, click here, copy this. We will clone this repository on your local machine. So you copy it and open a terminal or a shell or bash, whatever it's called, on your machine, and paste it. This requires Git. So if someone doesn't have Git, you will have to install it. So please let me know if you don't have Git on your machine. So I do have it already. I did clone it. It's my repository. So I'm just showing you, paste it here and hit enter. And let me know if you have issues with it. I will be. Yeah. Could you? Okay, if I don't see that people raised issues, I could continue then. So yeah, this is the repository then that you will need to execute the code that I will be showing today. So here there are conferences. I put the material for each conference in a separate folder. Today's conference is Data Science Conference 2024. And if you click on this conferences, Data Science 2024, you will see here the first part, prerequisites, and you will have to install these requirements. Now, you can get this key, Alpha Vantage key and Financial Modeling Prep API key. Click on these links. These are quick. I'm not sure about the Perm ID. I think I had to wait a bit before getting the API key. But let's do the following. Like the ones who don't have Docker installed, please install it on your machine. Like set up, install. You see here, if you have Mac or you have Windows, so choose the version that matches your operating system. Let me know if you need help. So I have it installed, obviously. If you have a Mac, you will see here on the top, Docker desktop is running, it will tell you. So Okay, no comments. All right. So let me then, just a question, because I would like to know, like, who has already Docker installed? Like, who has already done all these things, like got the keys and Docker? So how many participants I can see? Okay. Switch the, okay.
Maybe they can raise a hand.
Could you please, yes, like, or an emoji, let's say, can put thumb up if, okay. So I guess there's just, I see one. If I understood correctly, the others, then you didn't install Docker on your machine. So the reason I wanted you to install Docker is because this way we will avoid differences in our operating systems and conflicts in case you will be using Python. So I wanted to avoid, like having inconsistencies between our Python versions and between our operating system like Mac or Windows or Linux. Docker creates an isolated environment on your machine that runs equally regardless of the underlying operating system and regardless of what Python version you have on your system. Okay, I can see I've got Docker, great. So make sure that sorry, Docker is running. So I'll give you another minute for the others if you are installing it. In the meantime, those who have already Docker, but you haven't got the API keys, please proceed by like API Advantage is like on the spot. You just put your email, it returns you a key. And financial modeling prep as well. Just sign up and go on the top. By the way, here it is. This is financial modeling prep. I'm already logged in here. So when you sign up, you will see dashboard. Click on there, and then you see copy this value here, API keys. You can copy the keys in a separate file because then we will use them in our Jupyter notebook. And for AlphaVantage, go to alphavantage.co, get free API key, just put your whatever university and email. Click here and you will get the key on the spot. And for Perm ID, you have to register. And then you can get, let me see. I did register. Got the password. Yeah, remember the password now. So when you log into Perm ID, you see APIs, display my API token, and you will see it here. Let me see. Anyone? Okay. So let me know, guys, if you want more time, please write in the chat. Otherwise, it's 15:30. I think we can proceed. Now, when you go to the place where you cloned your the repository, let me know if I can how to increase this for you so that you can see. So here, navigate to conferences, data science conference 2024. I will paste the link here. This one where you can navigate to the required folder, chats. Go to that folder. Then you need to run 3 commands. Okay, I switch here because I explained them here. You need to run docker build. Where is the chat? Sorry, it's docker. Then run this command. Okay. If all goes well, go open your browser and navigate to this link here. Please let me know whether you succeed or fail in doing this. Because once you do that, you are ready to join me in running the scripts in the tutorial. And for the others, if you feel you are struggling currently with Docker, the API keys, I've prepared this tutorial in such a way that you can execute it on your own later if you want, because all the steps are explained. I'll be explaining them as well. So you don't have to worry if you, because this was expected actually that some of you might have missed the email with these instructions. Okay, could you please confirm, anyone, if it's running? Okay. Yes, I see Anastasia. Yes, great. All right. I'll be checking the chat. If anyone is having issues, please let me know. Then I guess if you run these 1-2 commands and navigate to this link on your browser, you will see something like this. So this is the Jupyter notebook, which contains the script that we will be executing in this tutorial. So along the way, I'll be explaining to you some concepts, some I will illustrate some challenges, and of course, we will also be interacting with financial data APIs. I'll explain what these APIs are, and you will see the data fetched. You can check it. I will explain what it means, why do you need all that data, etc. So yeah, let's begin. So the concept of API is quite common in software engineering. So in a nutshell, an API is a mechanism that allows two software applications to interact with each other. And this interaction can happen in mainly two ways. The first way is when one application asks another application to initiate a process in the backend. For example, if you submit a payment request or credit transfer request, or if you request a foreign exchange quote, if you want to sell dollars and buy euros. This is one type of API design. It's APIs that they call them process APIs, which start something where one part instructs another to start a process. And then there are data APIs. It's sorry. It's when one application asks data from another application. And in this tutorial, we will be talking about data APIs, not process APIs. And in particular, financial data APIs. In finance, APIs are quite common, both data and process APIs. They are very used because they are efficient and fast, and they are the best way for software developers to automate systems that need to interact with each other. For example, I work with a payment company, and one of the main things that we do is actually API integration. What does this mean? If we want to offer a service in a specific country and there is a financial services provider in that country, the way we integrate with this provider is by integrating with their API. So we communicate with them through APIs. Now, data APIs are also quite common in finance because there is a lot of production and consumption of financial data that happens on a daily basis as a result of financial transactions and the different financial activities. Now, the ones that collect financial data, they usually share it with others, or let's say they sell it to others. There are many financial data providers out there, like examples such as Bloomberg or FactSet or London Stock Exchange Group. These are big financial data providers, and one of the main mechanisms through which they deliver financial data, if you subscribe to them, is APIs. And in this tutorial, we will be actually interacting with these APIs. And in particular, the ones that have a free version. Otherwise, you will have to pay for it. So I will teach you in this tutorial how to interact with 5 APIs, actually, 5 different ones. You don't have to interact with 5 APIs. The reason I chose 5 is to show you a variety of financial APIs, financial data APIs, so that you get a good overview of the different type of data you can request and combine together. So what we will be doing in this tutorial is we will be requesting financial data, different types of financial data from different APIs, and we will combine this data together. Again, I will check the chat. Okay, it should actually it should flash or it should show red. I will not be switching again. So there are different reasons and different business cases for financial data, why you would need financial data. In this tutorial, I avoided having a specific business case. Instead, I will show you a general use case, which involves the following, You have the so-called stocks or shares. These are a common type of financial instruments that represent ownership in a company. You might have heard, like some of you come maybe from finance background, others from different backgrounds. Like when people say Microsoft shares went up by 2%, or Google share went down, or Tesla share went down or up. That's what we are talking about here. That's the kind of financial instrument that we are talking about. Now, there is a major problem in financial markets when it comes to identifying a specific share, which is the fact that there are so many identifiers used by financial markets to identify the same thing. And sorry. And these identifiers can vary in their scope, in their granularity, in their complexity, in their coverage, and use case and accessibility, of course. I put here an image. I took it from my book just to illustrate how many different financial identifiers exist around. There is more, actually, but this is just an illustration of the most important ones or the most common ones that you might find. Now, if you will ever work in financial markets, and specifically with financial data, one of the biggest challenges that you will be facing is aggregating data that have a different financial identifiers. So you would get one data set with one identifier and another set with a different identifier, and you need to combine the fields from the two data sets by matching the identifiers. This type of data is often called reference data, financial reference data. So in the first part of this tutorial, I will be showing you how to collect financial reference data for a handful of financial stocks. I will show you now which ones. Now, later on, to collect a different type of data, we will be collecting market data about the same stocks. It's all going to be the same. And at the end, we will have a big data set with all the fields all together. When you see the term market data, think of prices, the price of a stock on a stock exchange, for example. Market data is price data. And then we will also collect fundamental data. Fundamental data is accounting data, or let's say profit and loss and the revenues data about the company. So this is an overview. Let's then get started. So if you got the API keys, please here assign them to the 3 variables that you have. I think in the notebook you would get, these are empty because I pushed an empty version to GitHub. But here I replaced them with the ones that I'll be using. So please execute the first cell here so that the variables are assigned to the secrets, API keys. And then let's just import the necessary packages. Nothing special. These are standard packages. We will be using pandas to store the data. It's just an easy tool to use for storing data in tables. We will not be interacting with databases here because I thought I would just focus on the financial data aspect and the APIs. So I run this, and then, yes, I told you we will be requesting data for 5 types, or 1 type of financial instruments, which is shared for 5 companies. You know them. I chose them because to be, so that you are familiar. It's Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Nvidia Corporation. Now, we are going to start with the ticker symbols of these 5 companies. Ticker is actually a financial identifier, and it is usually used for readability purposes. It is like an abbreviation of the company name, actually. And as you can see, Apple is like abbreviation of the Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and NVIDIA. So this is what we have at the beginning. We don't have anything else. And using these stickers, we will be collecting data about other types of identifiers and market data and fundamental data. And we will put everything together at the end. Let's start then. The problem with, apologies, I'll drink. So tickers are nice to have, but they are not the most reliable identifier. You know, like they are readable, they are easy to understand for humans, they are short, but these are not like very reliable for identification. We want something that is more reliable, that is more structured for identifying these stocks, especially if these stocks are traded on different markets within the same country. Markets means different stock exchanges. Like in the US, you could have the same company traded on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and other stock exchanges. So one of the most reliable identifiers, and if you are going to work in industry, you will actually encounter this, and it's very good skill to learn how to use this identifier. FIGI or PG, I don't know how to pronounce it actually. FIGI identifier stands for Financial Instrument Global Identifier. This is an identification system that was created by Bloomberg and then open sourced actually. So they created it for themselves first, but then they open sourced it. So you have free access to this identifier. And we will now be requesting it. Just let me give you an idea why this identifier is actually quite reliable. It's because for each financial instrument, it assigns it 3 levels of identifier. The first one is the global share class FIGI identifier. This is an identifier that identifies the financial instrument regardless of the country where it is traded, and regardless of the market. It's international. So if Microsoft is traded on London Stock Exchange and New York Stock Exchange, the global share class FIGI will be the same. So if you need international identifiability, you would use a global share class FIGI. Now, if you want to identify as a financial instrument at the country level, but you don't care about the market where it is traded in that country, you would use the country composite FIGI for that instrument. And if you want to go more granular and you want to say, I want to identify a financial instrument in a country on a specific stock exchange, like New York Stock Exchange, you would use the lowest, the most granular FIGI, which is exchange level FIGI. So there is an API for requesting FIGI identifiers. And you can specify in this API, you need to specify the market if you want to get data for a specific market, and we will. And you need to specify what type of input are you providing, what type of input identifier you are providing it, so that it understands what is that code. So here you see, I will tell it that I want identifiers for a New York Stock Exchange market. So when it gets to this level, it will get the data for New York Stock Exchange. Obviously, the country will be the United States here, and the global one is independent of the country. And what type of ID I'm gonna give it is ticker. Why? Because I have tickers only. So I'm telling it, look, I have these tickers. Give me all these FIGI identifiers for these tickers. So let me see. I will run this now. And Oh, by the way, if you want to see details about these codes, there is a page here you can visit. So I will run this. Oh, I didn't run this. Please run this line, then run this line. So this jobs here, it just prepares a list of input that OpenFigi, it's called OpenFigi API, understands, you know. It's like we are looping through the tickers. We are telling it, prepare one dictionary like this for each ticker, which has ID type, its ticker, ID value, is it ticker itself, Apple, Amazon. And the MIC code is the market identifier, which is here, New York Stock Exchange. Okay, and let's see. Here I print, this is the input. So if you are going to interact with this API, that's how you need to prepare the input. Now here I prepare the function, which I'm not gonna explain in detail. You can check it yourself. It sends that's when we send an API request. You see here. Here you are sending an API request to this address. This is the address of the API. We are calling this API here, mapping, giving it the input, jobs here, it's what we call jobs, and parsing the output, and then returning the results. Just note something, the OpenFigi API is free, but there is a limit to how many requests you can send per day. Unless you buy an API key, and in this case, if you noticed, I didn't ask you to get an API key because the free version does not require an API key. So I ran this line, and here you see, now I'm making the request to fetch the data. And here we go. The data for the 5 tickers, Microsoft, Amazon, remember, is ready. You see, let's take the first one. This one, which one? That's Apple. It actually gives you a few fields, not just one. Like it returns you the ticker that you provided. And as you can see, there is the share class Figi. That is the international one. Then there is the, where is the composite Figi? This is the lowest level, or no, that's a country, sorry. This is the country level Figi, and this is the stock exchange specific Figi. So you have 1, 2, and 3. No, that's actually, it was here. For each stock, you now have the 3 Figi identifiers. It also gives you additional information. It's telling you that this company name is Apple Incorporation. It gave you like a nice name. The market sector is equity. Equity is a term used in finance to indicate the category of shares, company shares. It's they are tight financial instruments that give you ownership in a company. So stocks are called sometimes shares or equity. So equity, stocks, and shares is the same term in finance, used to indicate the same thing. Now, stocks can have different types. The 2 main types are common stocks and preferred stocks. Here we are requesting data for the common stock of Apple. So now we have already some data for the 5 tickers that we specified at the beginning. Now let's try to clean this data. Some lines I will just run and ask you to run them. They are just cleaning data, you know, like there's nothing interesting to explain. So you see here, I put the data in a pandas data frame. Then I dropped some columns, which I don't need. I kept like the ones I want. Just keep in mind, we provided MIC code, market identifier code, New York Stock Exchange. This was kind of like related, easy to associate and understand. It's New York Stock Exchange, but the API returns an exchange code. It's UN now. Now UN is a New York Stock Exchange, and they have a mapping between all these in here, in this page here, mapping between exchange codes and market identifier codes. So you see now, we have some data. We started with 5 tickers only, and we now have 6, 7 more fields, which you can already use to identify a stock on a specific market, country, or at the international level. For example, if you are doing trading or investment, you might need to indicate which financial instrument are you talking about, not just Apple like this, you know. They might ask you, be more specific, give me like the identifier of that stock on a specific stock exchange, for example, to purchase or to report it to regulators. So you see, it's a 12 characters code. It's all 12 characters code. It starts with BB because it's Bloomberg, which issues the FIGI at the moment. It's open for others to join and issue FIGI codes, but at the moment it's just Bloomberg. Good. Now, let's go and get more identifiers, because usually you wouldn't interact only with the FIGI. You might get another data set that has a famous type of identifier called perm ID, which I'm going to explain next. Let me see if there are any questions. Okay, no? Good. I don't know how did it work out for the rest, guys. Please let me know, like, if you have questions. If not, as I said, it's really not a problem at all. You take it as a homework for you to install Docker, get the API keys, and run this. It's self-explanatory. I added all the explanations. All you have to do is just place the API keys in the variables at the beginning, and you will get all of these data. Just run the codes, run the different cells. So Bloomberg open sourced the FIGI identifier. Now this created competition. Now other big players in the markets, such as the London Stock Exchange Group, which they branded, by the way, if you worked in finance, this was called Refinitiv previously. It was well known as Refinitiv, and before it was Reuters. So Reuters, Refinitiv, now it's LSEG. So LSEG decided also to open source their unique identifier that was proprietary before. It's now called the perm ID identifier. And this identifier is also quite interesting. It's a bit different than the FIGI, although like it kind of serves the same purpose. But this one is quite rich, actually, because what they did with this identifier, so LSEG has a lot of data sets. They are one of the biggest data providers in the world. Actually, they are the second after Bloomberg. They have all types of data on organizations, financial instruments, persons, reference data, entity, everything. So what they did is they created an identifier that connects companies with the people, with instruments, with markets. They call it quote here. Quote means the place where an instrument is quoted. So it's like stock exchange as we used the term before. So also this API is open source. And it's a bit more complex, like, because it has a lot of functions that you can interact with. Figgy is a bit simpler. This one is a bit more, it has more features, I would say. This part actually, I forgot to remove this code. So, okay. So this code may not run on your machine, but don't worry. It's, I changed it because before I just added the perm ID API key as a environmental variable, but now I just added it indeed here. Okay, let's change it here. Okay, do the following. If you are actually running, take this perm ID API key, go to the beginning and copy this. Got to change this, I will change it, and go to, where is it? Here. Just replace this. It says that on my case, it's set because I initially ran it with this environmental variable. In your case, it might say it's not missing it, but don't worry, just replace it here. And here is another API. We started with Figgy. This is the second API. This is the endpoint. And as you can see, we will provide it with the ticker, Apple, Microsoft, whatever, and the market identifier code. So we will be also requesting the perm ID for each ticker that we have for the specific market that we indicated, which is New York Stock Exchange. So let's run this and run this one. And here, let's see a sample of the data. I will clean it, and also we will add it to our data frame. Just let me check the time. Okay, we have time. So remember the chart above. It says organizations, organization, instrument, quote. That's the data we got. Organization. I'm showing here sample of the data for Apple. We requested it for 5 companies, but here I'm showing it for Apple. Now, the first part, organizations, give you information about this company. What is it called? It's Apple. It's ticker, it's a company. What type of, is it publicly traded? Yes. Which, does it have website, etc.? Yes. And you see, there is a link here, a link for the organization that's called Apple. Let me just open it. I hope I'm sharing my entire screen. I think, yeah, because before you could see. So if I open this link, you could actually see details. You see it's open access, so I didn't have to log in or anything. You see, you have a lot of information about this company. Status, initial public offer, when was it like introduced as a public company in the market, legal entity identifier. I'll talk about this in a bit, like headquarter, etc. And you see the board of directors. And in addition to that, other informations that let me get here before. So it got you information about the organization, Apple, and its company information. Then we got information about the instrument that we are asking for. What instrument? It's a share, again, ordinary shares. Remember above in Figi, it was called common share. Here it's called ordinary share. It's just the same name. And ticker as well. And now data for the specific market we requested, which is New York Stock Exchange, is available in the quotes entity. So again, some repeated info. And here you see, this is the market, New York Stock Exchange. It has exchange ticker. This is what we provided. Now, it got you also a quite interesting and important identifier, which is usually hard to find. It's called RIC. RIC is Refinitiv Identification Code, or it was called Reuters Identification Code. RIC is actually similar to the ticker that we provided, but it is proprietary for LSEG. And this ticker is also quite used in the market. Like you would receive a lot of data which has RIC ticker as an identifier, sorry. So if you ever get asked how to get the ticker of an instrument, here you go, use this API and you will get the RIC. It's a very common request in finance because this provider is quite big and a lot of the data that people receive comes from LSEG and it comes with the RIC. So if a RIC is missing, you can use this API to retrieve it by providing the market and the ticker name. Now, what is the difference between the ticker that we used at the beginning and the RIC ticker? RIC ticker actually is a bit more granular. You see, if you compare just the first part, they are similar, but there is .n here. What does this mean? This is the market where the stock is traded. N is New York Stock Exchange, which is identified also here by the market identifier code. And you can use all these links to access quote data. Let's go here, for example. You see general quote details. This is the perm ID. That's the proprietary ID of Refinitiv, which is now LSEG. Share class, RIC, ticker, exchange, currency, the currency of the share. It's traded in US dollars. So here we have more data. This code just cleans it. It parses all this stuff, like because you see it's nested. So I had to write this code, and for each asset, I just took the most important fields. I just selected some of these fields, not everything, so that we get a clean data set. And here, yeah, here I request additional data. Let me please do the following as well, like this perm API key. Please place it here. And run. I'll push this code to GitHub so that you have this version. And I run this. Now, using these URLs, because they are open access, you can read this page actually and get additional information. That's what I'm doing now. I want to get this identifier. This is one of the most important identifiers that you would work with in financial markets. It's called legal entity identifier, 20 characters in length. It identifies an entity that interacts, that engages in financial transactions. Entity it's mostly a company, so it's not a company, brokers. It is the international standard now for identifying entities in financial markets. So you see here, I got the legal entity identifier, phone, address, initial public offer as well. Initial public offer is the first time a company goes public, offering its shares to the market. So as you can see now, I have this additional data. I have the initial public offer, and what else? In case there's a phone, it's there, and other info. So you see, it got like a richer. Good. That's for Perm ID. That's a very important API. You would definitely use it if you are gonna work in financial data. Now there's another interesting API. This is fully open access. There isn't a subscription required or anything. Remember this legal entity identifier I just mentioned? Behind this, there is a foundation called Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation. This foundation decided to provide an API as well to request data related to legal entities. Of course, legal entity identifier, but as well other legal entity identifiers. Now, in this case, we will be requesting some other data, which I'm going to show you now. So here, this is the API that we are calling, and we are specifying a legal entity identifier for each of the 5 tickers. Since we now have the legal entity identifier here, we can use it now to request more information about these legal entities from this API. So here is an example. This doesn't look nice, but as you can see, these fields are like related to the entity, its jurisdiction, legal address, legal form, sorry, legal name, and etc. And these are also useful information. So this doesn't look nice. Clean it here. And I merged the two here. I merged the Perm ID data with the legal entity identifier data. You see here, I also got the big code. This is that's the big code you indicate when you do an international transfer. And this is the big code of these 5 companies. So some of them don't have a big. You see, this is why you have different identifiers. Like sometimes an identifier is available for one company, but not for another. So you would use this one instead. You see that this is a major challenge. That's why we have so many identifiers, as I mentioned at the beginning, because they also have different coverage. So if one has more coverage, it will be used, but you could also say, no, I need this. For example, if you are doing a Swift transactions, it will ask you for a BIC. So depending on the use case, you would use different identifiers. In this case, we are matching them. We are saying this BIC and this lay belong to the same company, which is Apple. So you see, we have the RIC identifier. .n is the stock exchange, the IPO, the address, phone, etc. So let's now merge all these data together, the FIGI data, Perm ID data, and the legal entity identifier data. Run this code. And you have everything. You have the FIGI now, market sector. You see, you already have tons of data about these 5 companies. We started with 5 symbols, and now we have 23 columns in total, which is quite nice, given that we have got all of this using free APIs, free and reliable APIs, because this is very important, and it will be actually the case. This will be important for the next API that I'm going to illustrate. When you work with free APIs, be careful of 2 things. The first one is there is no guarantee that the quality of the data is the highest. Because it's free, sometimes the provider is not interested in maintaining it and giving you the best, like error-free, bias-free data. So be careful of this. Sometimes it's not. It's actually high quality, like FIGI data, and actually, all these 3 are high quality, so you can rely on them to get free data. Now, so far, we have dealt with identifier data that identifies a company, the stock exchange where it is traded, its sector, its class, classifications, etc. Now let's move on to get a different type of the financial data, which you can also associate with this. You can at the end have like comprehensive data set that contains reference data. This is reference data plus what we will call now market data and fundamentals data. So market data is data about the prices, and it's usually time series. You get market data in the form of a historical time series. It's a snapshot. It can also be like real time, meaning that once a price is produced in a stock exchange, it gets transmitted immediately, so you receive it on time. And one good free API for market data is Alpha Vantage. This requires an API key, which we set at the beginning. So this API has different functions. This is the function here. Function is what type of data you're requesting. In this case, I'm requesting time series data, price time series data, daily prices, and the symbol will be specified as an argument. Output output size compact means give me just like the last 100 days, and it returns a CSV. And here it's important, parameter adjusted equal true. So financial price data can come in adjusted or non-adjusted format. What does adjusted mean? It means it is adjusted for different corporate actions. For example, a company might decide to do a stock split. What does it mean? It splits every stock out there in the market into a multiple of 2 or 3 or whatever stocks. So what happens when you split, let's take 1:2 split ratio. Every stock becomes 2. Now, if the price of a stock is $1 and you split it in 2, the price goes down to 50 cents. Now, in this case, you need to adjust the price to become 50 cents. You cannot keep it $1. And this is what adjusted data means. So you would usually work with adjusted data. Or you get the data, but be aware if it's adjusted or not. This is very important. So I'm going to create this function. And I will request the time series data. Okay, and let's see a sample, because this is a lot of data. It's 100 data points per stock. So the final data frame has 500 lines. I just want to show you like 5 lines. So this is Apple. And as you can see, the data is actually recent somehow. So the last date for which we have data is November 15. And you see here the different types of prices. Open price is the price when stock exchange opens. High price is the highest price that it reached during this day. Low is the lowest price it reached during the day. Volume is the amount of times the stock was exchanged. And this is the ticker. So you would usually use the close price for analysis. It's typically the price variable that's used for analysis, but you could also be interested in open and high and low for different types of analytics and volatility, etc. Now, sorry. Now, in order to just take one date, let's take the latest date for each stock, I filter the data frame to take just the latest. So as you can see, we have only one line for each stock. It's the same date. It's actually November 15, and we have the price. Obviously, as I said at the beginning, I'm not doing this data fetching for any business case. I'm just collecting data and showing you how to collect data. But later, depending on your use case, you would filter as you wish. You would drop columns, add sum, etc. Now we have market data. It's a very important type of data that you will be working with in financial markets. Finally, let's get fundamentals data. And this time we will be using another API. This is the fifth API you are going to be using. It's called Financial Modeling Prep. It's one of my favorite APIs because they have a large variety of financial data that you can query. They have the free version. It's limited, but it's good for like learning purposes or doing some classroom testing or demo, as I'm doing now, tutorial. But the paid version is also quite good. They have all these types of data. And in our case, we are going to fetch some fundamental data. As I said, fundamental data is data about the accounting of a company, like the revenues, the balance sheets, the net income. So let's go again. In this case, we will be interacting with this API. We will provide here the ticker, and this is the API key, which you set at the beginning. And now let's fetch the data for the 5 tickers. Let's see a sample of the data. You see, it gave actually a lot of items. These are, if you are familiar with accounting, they will sound familiar to you. So this is for Apple. Apple has reported in US dollars. So the different figures you see are in US dollars. This is the revenue of Apple. The filing date is November 2000. Oh no, this is actually 1st of January. That's okay. I don't know if this is 1st of January or 11 January or 1st of November. You can check. That's something, but the calendar year has 2024, and this is the revenue. And you have other like figures, gross profit, ratios. You have net income ratio, etc. These are like measures about the profitability of a company. And I will just pick a few items, convert them, and rename. And you see, this is easier to read. Our 5 tickers. And we got here another identifier, by the way, which is good to have. It is the US Securities and Exchange Commission identifier. It's used for reporting in the United States, and it's good to have. So we will be adding this to our big data set that we have above. We have the revenue, reporting currency, net income, filing date. So yeah, apparently this is the month and this is the day. So 1st of November. So yeah, let's merge market and fundamental data. Now let's merge everything all in the same. Actually, let me show you. So here we go. I merged everything in the same data frame: market data, fundamental data, and reference data. So you have a very rich data set now about these 5 tickers. Obviously, you won't do this, like maybe you don't need to do this. You might need to take market and fundamental data out and merge them when they are necessary, or you want to keep just a portion of these identifiers. But keep in mind that this is like the general practice in finance, is that you will receive data from many vendors from different APIs, and one of the big challenges you will face is to match them, aggregate them, and integrate them, all together, as I did here. Obviously, I picked the simplest example ever you can imagine before, like to make it smooth. When it comes to different types of instruments, it does become much more complex, like with bonds or with derivatives. These are derivatives especially, or with funds. These are much more complex financial instruments. They have many more components, many more elements that you need to have to identify them, not just like here ticker and Fiji, maybe it's enough. With derivatives, you might need to have like tens of elements to identify one derivative, and same for funds, etc. But this is a good way to start, because it's good to know like what kind of challenges you will face, why there are so many identifiers. As you saw, each provider provides their own identifier. Some identifiers have different coverage from others, and some identifiers were forced on the market, and that created a huge landscape of financial identifiers and created this big challenge, which is still a big challenge. I think it's actually the most demanding challenge in financial data management, which is collecting reference data, matching them, and creating such a clean data set as I did here. But again, it's much more complex than this when it comes to other types of identifiers. Here I printed one example of all the data that we collected. It's quite nice, because remember we started with this here, nothing else, and we collected all this data about about the 5 companies. And this is it. That's the end of the tutorial. What time is it? 16:29. I think we are on time. Anyone has questions? Anyone has comments or more questions and answers? I might have missed that question. Yes. So the reason you could actually use one identifier, but the reason is when you don't control the identifier that you receive when you collect data from a financial provider, or not necessarily a financial provider, it can be your client sending you the data. Each client could send you different data with different identifiers. So you will have to match these. And that's actually the challenge I mentioned. And in addition to that, there is no incentive for the market to use one identifier yet. Because some, they want to force their own identifier. And Figgy is the best example. Bloomberg, they pushed really hard for this identifier. They actually accredit it as a standard in the United States. But you would have others who would push for their own identifier. And it keeps going and going again. Everyone creates their own identifier. And another thing is, as I mentioned, different identifiers have different coverage. So you could have the Figgy covering very well stocks, but you could have another identifier covering much better funds, for example. So it's enough to just have like a few use cases where you are missing an identifier to justify the use of another one. And that's why you end up merging, and you end up with this challenge to merge all of them together.
Maybe I can repeat the question so it can be recorded, because you didn't say it loud. So I will read once again, just to be...
yes.
Why don't we use only one chosen identifier like Figgy you mentioned, since stickers are not good enough but need to collect so many different identifiers? So that is the question, and the answer was 5 seconds ago.
Yes. I hope now you can match the answer again with the question. So yes, it's a good question. Everyone is asking why, actually, and everyone's trying to solve it, but everyone solves it on their own. So they even make it worse. Everyone comes up with an identifier. It gets adopted by some, the other gets adopted by others. And they started sharing information with each other, and they send each other different identifiers. And then they say, okay, I'm going to need to match this. Good question, yeah. Any other question? By the way, like, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can ask me any question there. You can add me. If you want, you can ask questions on GitHub page. There is like the section called issues, if you have an issue, by the way. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful. And it will help you in your career if you are interested in financial data.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tamer.